I'd like to call to order the November 18th, 2021 Board of Adjustment meeting. Could I get a roll call, please?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Diana Ford,
Here.
Todd Kays,
Here.
Bonnie Oletsky,
Here.
Rhonda Dargitz Johnson,
Here.
Bill Spire,
Here.
Blake
There he
Dolly.
is.
Okay. Blake, I think, is absent for the time being. He may join us online later. Liam Culhane.
Present.
Thank you. And Justin Hansen. Don't see him joining online either, so
That's
we'll mark
Jason.
him as a no. And Jeff Brink.
Here. So looks like we have a full quorum of 7 currently here. Third item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from the October 21st meeting. Could I get a motion and a second for discussion?
So moved. Second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Fourth item on the agenda is our regular agenda. 4A is board consideration of a variance request at 1002 Fifth Avenue Southeast. Stacy, would you take it away and fill us in?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to find here, potentially, this area. Well, we'll go back here. Sorry, I'm not as speedy at this as Brandy is, so. Okay. As was mentioned, this is a variance request. We are looking at 1002 Fifth Avenue Southeast, and we are looking at a setback variance here. An application was submitted to demolish this particular structure right here. It is in a C3 district, and the whole area, this whole block, is C3 here. Just wanted to note that. And then with the demolition of this particular structure, which I guess is in poor condition, the applicant would like to construct a new commercial structure. The existing structure is non-conforming and is 7 feet from the south side to the east, and then 3 feet from the side yard to the south. So they have a 3 and a 7 foot side yard setback right now, and they would like to place the building basically in the same place. The ordinance does require a 20-foot side yard setback. The reason that they're hoping to do this is to be able to have some additional storage for security and also aesthetics. The property is about 13,500 square feet in size, and it is under the minimum size requirement of that 20,000 square foot in the C3 district. The land was platted prior to current day zoning regulations, but it was split by a deed in the past. However, currently, I believe these two parcels are commonly owned. So. Yes, the owner verified that. So the existing development pattern in the area is fairly complex, with a lot of structures being close to the side property lines, and I believe that there are some residences mixed in the C3 district as well. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Stacy. One question I have is, so they want to tear down this building because it's old and dilapidated, and they want to build a new building. Is the new building going to be the same size? Is it going to have the same length and width, or is that a bigger building?
I believe the applicant is requesting a bigger structure. They are wanting to put up a 48 by 62, I understand, and I think that that's quite a bit larger than the existing, if that's correct.
Okay, thank you. And another question I have, if it is the same owner on both the north and south properties, could we do like a development lot agreement and tie those properties together and make it one parcel again? Is that an option?
That would be an option, and I believe that would be fine to have as part of the variance.
Because if just thinking out loud, if we did that, then they would get rid of the variance to the south, and there would only be the side yard setback variance.
That's correct.
If we allowed those to tie those back into one parcel, and which is, I believe, would be one platted lot then at that time.
That's correct. We would look at that as one platted lot. And
Yep.
due to the fact that these have been developed and they've been existing lots, I believe the DLA would be an appropriate method to accomplish that.
Excuse me, even though one is the commercial building, because that's where the motorcycle shop is, and the other one is a residential home, we could still combine them?
I think that I would have to do some checking, I guess, on the actual non-conforming portion of the ordinance. But the residence itself is non-conforming and the property is zone C3, so I believe that would take precedence, but I could double check that.
For point of clarification, so the residence is not as a conforming use in the C3? We do allow for residences in the C3?
I guess I would have to check that. I'm assuming that it's non-conforming.
We do, by conditional use, allow residential, I don't know if this has gone through the conditional use process, but we do, by conditional use, allow residential properties in the C3.
So the use itself, absent a CUP, I mean, would be a conforming use.
Could be. It could be a
if-
conforming.
If it was granted, but it's non-conforming from a setback perspective.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome.
I'm going to open up the public hearing. I believe Bonnie had a question for the applicant.
Yeah, I was wondering, now, did you guys pay off that building where the motorcycle shop is, or is that still contract for deed?
Would you please
Okay, thank
approach
you.
the microphone and state your name for the record? People can't hear you online if you don't talk into the microphone.
It would be Rob Anglin, the owner of both properties, 1002 Fifth Avenue Southeast and 512 10th Street Southeast. And to answer your question, yes, yep, nope, that's all taken care of.
Rob, do you reside at that residence
Yes,
as well?
Yes, I do.
Rob, how far would that new building be from the existing white garage that faces west? Because if that's 48 feet wide, that doesn't look like there's much between the two.
So in one of the better drawings that we had and that original sheet that got sent out, it shows the distance between the west garage and the property line is about 66 feet. So at 48 feet, the reasoning that I picked those dimensions was for the fact that there wouldn't have to be a firewall between the west garage and the new building. At 48 feet with the original building, that structure that's there right now is actually 32 feet. So it would actually only be adding to the west 16 feet essentially, which still leaves me over 10 feet to the other existing structure, the west garage there. Yeah, so you'll show that's even actually more than that. Because
Okay, I guess I'm confused. Are you're gonna connect it with the building that has the red, white, and blue tin?
No, actually they're separate structures.
Okay.
Yep, so
And how big
essentially-
is the building that you're taking down?
28 by 32, I believe. Yeah.
Okay, so it's gonna be twice as long then? I mean, it's gonna go to the north, right?
Correct. It would actually match the existing property to the east of me, that 1014 Fifth Avenue Southeast. It would be the same setback as that.
And that's a residence next door to you there?
Correct. Yes, but also in a commercial area. That's actually the only residence that I'm aware of on that block that anybody else lives other than myself.
Stacy, were adjoining property owners notified?
Yes, adjoining property owners were notified on this one within 250 feet. To date, we have not received any comments.
Have you had a conversation with your neighbor regarding what you want to do there on that property?
I've had a discussion with a rental, or with the renter.
The renter.
But the owner of the property is Mike Landsberger, and sometimes it's a little bit tougher to catch him at the
Sure.
right time. So I haven't had that opportunity yet.
And is the new building just storage, or are you gonna be working on bikes in there also?
No, essentially what it kind of boils down to is my situation has changed business-wise over the last couple of years, and it's kind of opened my eyes to needing a little bit more storage space and the ability to change my business plan a little bit, and to be able to have the storage on site versus running around trying to pick up people's stuff to work on in our off season, which is unfortunately 7 months of winter sometimes. And working on motorcycles for a living, it's a whole lot easier with that stuff on site. And the biggest thing for me is the fact that the building is, well, it's probably 80 years old, to be honest with you. I'm not sure. It's just starting to show its age, and it doesn't really, very, very neat and particular on the property already, and it would just be nice to have a building that kind of fit in with the rest of everything else, so. And realistically, the tying the two properties together was something that was discussed. The only reason I just thought it would be one of those situations where if I was applying for a setback just to basically mimic the existing structure's east wall, I might as well bring that property or that new building closer to line up to that west garage, if that makes any sense at all. So everything, because right now both properties, if you look at the way the existing garage that I'm proposing taking down, and then also my shop, which has the red, white, and blue roof, all of that to the east is the same setback on that entire edge, so that matches. And then the idea and intention would be have the west garage and the back of that new building on the same plane to the west. So essentially where that blue line is, it would be that same line. And that was kind of the idea and intention with that second variance. And I could tie the two properties together and not have to worry about that other setback, but I just thought for the easiness of operation and just being able to kind of look at it and have it make more sense as far as an aesthetics standpoint, and kind of a little bit more of a tidiness aspect of, you know, just making it right if a person's going to do it. So.
Are there any other questions for the applicant from the board members?
Ford has a question.
Go ahead, Ford.
So I'm trying to figure out why you chose this building size. So I hear you saying you chose this particular building size so that it lined up with the building with the striped roof to the south and with the building on your neighboring property to the east. Is that correct?
The east property is not my property, but according to the setbacks in the ordinance for the setback off the street, I can't be any farther than the nearest, the closest property next to me. So the reason the long dimension or the 62 dimension was picked is because that's the farthest I can come to the north and still stay within reason as far as the setback to the property to the east of me.
Okay, so I'm talking about the 7-foot setback
Sure.
on the east.
Yep.
You chose the size of the building so these buildings would line up, not necessarily because that's what you need exactly for your business.
Unfortunately, the reason I picked 48 was the idea and intention was to keep that same 7-foot setback for the simple fact that to the west, I would have to be at least 10 feet from that structure. Rather than try and tie those two structures together, which would be very difficult to do, I kept it over 10 feet apart and took the maximum amount of space that I can, because the idea and intention with my business is having 3 separate trailers for the pickup and drop off that I do, whether it's an open trailer, a smaller open trailer, a smaller enclosed trailer, and then a larger 30-foot enclosed trailer. The idea and intention would be the structure is going to be able to hold those trailers and the other stuff that I have, in addition to the ability to have motorcycle storage. And the reason for the height aspect would be to be able to do pallet racking to store motorcycles above each other, basically 2 rows. And that 48-foot was picked because it's very, very difficult for the width of the trailers, how long the building is, putting the 3 trailers in on the one side and still being able to run a forklift safely with being able to get those bikes off the pallet racking.
Thank you.
Yes.
Mr. Chair. Mr. Anglin, so currently where do you park your trailers right now?
1 trailer fits inside of that building.
And then the other 2 are across town?
1 sits outside. I also have other vehicles that sit outside, which is just kind of part of the situation. And then, yes, other ones I do pay to store the other 2 trailers other places.
So by building this, you would end up aesthetically making it look better with less clutter on the lot?
Oh, definitely. I would encourage anybody to drive by, and it would definitely be.
Yeah.
It looks very, very nice.
And so the other question, Stacy, do we know the distance between the existing shed structure and the residence to the east, the separation between those two structures.
Take a look here. It looks to be about 23 feet off of this, but we would probably see something a little bit more technical at the time of permit. So it looks to be at least 20 feet.
And we're not looking at encroaching that line any more than it is right now.
No, essentially it would be keeping the exact same east setback. Not, like I said, trying to ruffle as least amount of feathers as possible.
Thank you.
How tall is the building now that you're taking down?
Right now it is 14, I think 13 or 14 feet, depends on where you measure.
And then, where it sunk. And then how tall do you want to go now?
I would like 18-foot sidewalls. It just gives me a little bit of the ability to have the 16-foot door, and like I said, pulling stuff in and out. It's less room for error, I guess.
What's the sidewall on the red, white, and blue building?
That actually only has 10-foot sidewalls. Yes, yes, and that's actually, that building's been raised twice in its existence. Wow. Yeah.
Huh.
And that, are you in flood zone?
Yes. But we've already, I've already checked into how far the building would have to be brought up, which isn't near as much as I honestly thought. I think it was 18 to 20 inches, and I figured 2 foot it would have to come up anyways, just by looking at the yard.
And so for resale someday on your business, is it going to be to your advantage to have that all as one plat?
It's such a very interesting location, and I don't mean that specifically that property, but the entire block. I think it's very, very difficult to get anybody interested in the properties if they weren't tied together. I'm not sure that there's many people that would particularly like to have a residential property in a commercial area, which is why I purchased the property when I had the opportunity. It all depends on how you would look at it. The two properties are so tied together, it would be hard not to, say that it would increase it, but it's not wouldn't be a requirement, I guess. If they were separated and I ever sold the south property, I would still keep the north property, if that makes any sense. So,
I would like to invite anyone else from the public, either in the room or online. Please feel free to come up to the microphone and state your name for the record and speak in favor of or against this item if you wish to do so.
Mr. Chairman, Stacy, the existing motorcycle shop, that building is too small for the zoning requirements too, right?
Correct.
So then if we did combine them, then it will meet the zoning requirements also, right?
I believe it will. We could just take a quick peek here.
It'll be really close either way. As the northern property is 13 and a half and 20 is our minimum, so it should be pretty close.
I think it would just meet it based on this.
Hearing no one else, does anyone else have any other questions for the applicant? Hearing none, I will close the public hearing and ask for a motion and a second for discussion.
Mr. Chair,
Go ahead.
motion to approve the variance from the east property line as requested, subject to a development lot agreement put in place tying the two properties together, thereby not necessitating a need for a variance on the south.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second, and I think tying those lots together is the right thing to do. It eliminates the lot area variance and the south setback variance. Is there any other discussion from the board?
This is Ford.
Go ahead, Diana.
Stacy, was a letter sent to the owner of the property, the residential property to the east, or just to the occupant of the residential property to the east?
That's a good question, Diana. Typically, we send all of our letters to the owner of record, and that owner of record comes off of the whoever is getting the tax bill, essentially, and that is typically the owner.
And so you didn't hear anything back from the owner?
I have not heard anything.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hearing no other discussion, and since this is a variance, I'll ask for a roll call vote.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Ford.
Yes?
Culhane.
Yes.
Kays.
Yes.
Aletsky.
Yes.
Dargits Johnson.
Yes.
Spire.
Yes.
And Brink.
Yes. 7-0, motion carries. Moving on the agenda is item 5, open public comment. Stacy, did we receive any?
We have not received any public comment requests.
Okay, I'll move on. Item 6 is new business. Do you have any new business, or does anyone on the board have any new business?
I do not have any new business.
Hearing none from the board, I'll move on to item 7. Any old business?
We did have a question, and I believe it came from Commissioner Ford about a particular property in town, House of Dreams. City Attorney Roby did address that at the last meeting, but I wondered if he would mind taking a couple of minutes to talk through that again so all the members are updated on that situation.
Sure. Was there a particular question?
I think what's going on with that house and, the nonconformities and have we moved forward? Where was that left? Essentially, it had a long history and they did get a permit, I believe, for the exterior steps, street side and that. But in terms of removing some structures and or columns and things, I believe we've been kind of at a standstill there.
Yeah, I can't speak to what's gone on as far as permitting recently, but as far as the litigation is concerned, there was an appeal, as I think most folks recall, from an action of the board, the Plan Commission, would have been roughly 2 years ago probably now. And there was an appeal taken, and subsequently there was no action to pursue the appeal, and the city sought to have the matter dismissed for lack of prosecution. The judge disagreed with our motion, and since then, which it's now been another year, we have had zero activity in the matter. So likely after the first of the year, there'll be some additional discussions about trying to conclude that matter. But as we sit today, it's still a pending litigation.
And I understand while it's pending litigation, there won't be any compliance. We would not be writing any compliance letters or anything of that sort.
Correct.
Thank you for those updates.
You're welcome.
Any other old business? Hearing none, move on to 8, motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, same sign. We are adjourned.